We're here with Dan Smith, who has a profile on FindaGuitarTeacher.com. Welcome, Dan. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us about your guitar teaching.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about your guitar teaching. Can you tell us first, where do you teach? What city and what state are you in?
I'm in New York State, specifically New York City, and I teach in my studio here in Manhattan.
And do all your students come to you, or do you also travel to your students' homes?
All my students work with me here in my studio.
And how would you describe the guitar lesson climate there in Manhattan? Are there a lot of people who want to learn guitar?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very strong presence in terms of people who want to learn to play guitar. There's a lot of interest for it. I've been teaching guitar here for many years. I've taught virtually all walks of life. When it comes to my students, I teach from young to old. Although these days, I really teach almost exclusively adults. The youngest student that I teach is 13 years old, but most of my students are adults in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s on up. And it's always been a very strong pull for people to want to learn to play guitar.
And what styles of guitar do you teach?
I tend to focus on rock and roll and blues, but that said, I teach a wide range of styles. I probably teach everything except for classical guitar, which is cool, but it's just never really been my thing. I like to teach country music and folk and bluegrass and jazz standards and that kind of thing. But I would say the music that I really relate to the most would be rock and roll and blues.
And are there particular guitarists that have influenced you that you really like to listen to?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess it depends on the day, but certainly there are people, like Keith Richards has been a big influence on me. Also, somebody like Mike Bloomfield from Paul Butterfield Blues Band. But it really depends on the day. I mean, lately I've been into Elizabeth Cotten. She was a guitar player from way, way back, and she was a wonderful folk blues player. So I tend to move around a lot, and I get very influenced also by the music that my students bring to me.
And can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you learn to play guitar, and do you apply the way you learn to your own teaching?
It's an excellent question. Yeah, I started to learn to play guitar when I was 13, and I worked with a really great teacher who I apply so much of not only what they taught me about guitar, but also how to teach. And I would say to that end, in terms of how I teach, it really is based on so many ideas, but not least of which is really learning how to teach yourself so that you're not just getting information about where to put your fingers on the strings, but you're really learning an overall approach to making music that's based in really feeling more relaxed and confident when you play and connecting to your overall musicality.
And can you tell us a little bit about your fees and how often do you work with students?
Well, I work with all my students a minimum of one lesson per week. You can do a lesson as short as 45 minutes, for which I charge $75. And usually I start with an introductory lesson of 45 minutes for $75. But that said, most of my students work with me for at least an hour or two, and my regular hourly fee is $100 an hour.
And can you also tell us, can you tell us a little bit about your equipment? When you're teaching, what guitars do you use, and do you employ recording equipment when you're teaching your students?
Sure, absolutely. I have a number of guitars here in the studio. I have a couple of acoustic guitars. This is a Gibson Hummingbird. This is probably my favorite acoustic guitar. But I also have a couple of electrics. I have a Fender Telecaster and Stratocaster. And in terms of recording equipment, I use GarageBand and as well as Pro Tools. I like to teach people, when I'm teaching people about that whole world of computer recording, starting with GarageBand just because it's such an accessible program, and that comes standard on every Mac computer. But pretty soon, what I like to move into is using Pro Tools because that's the program that I use to create my own music.
And do you offer guidance to your students about what guitars they should buy?
Definitely. That's a big aspect, especially in the beginning when I'm starting working with students and particularly students who are just getting started playing guitar. It can be a very overwhelming process to buy your first guitar, let alone if you've maybe been playing for a while and you want to upgrade to a more high-end instrument, I offer a lot of guidance in that regard. We'll look at things, just on the internet to do a lot of research before you even walk into a store. So, you're pretty clear about what you want before you even show up. That said, sometimes it's important to hold a guitar in your hands and try it out and just see how you feel before you make a purchase. But that's a very personal process to learn or to assess what's going to be the right guitar for you.
And you are holding the Gibson Hummingbird. Would you like to
I am.
play something for us? Something that you like to play that you might show your students, just to give
Sure.
viewers a feel for your guitar playing.
That sounds good to me. I like to play this song. It's a really good learning song, but it's also just a fun song to play. This is a song by Bill Withers called "Just the Two of Us," and it starts with just very simple chords like this. So those are chords that for anybody just getting started, you can get right into that because those are very simple open chords. But the thing that's really cool about this song is you can keep adding to it. You can keep building on those very simple foundations. So for example, you can add what are sometimes called passing chords like this. And then little by little, you can start to add things like little pieces of lead in between the chords, like this kind of thing. Whoops. And then you can start to play those same chords in different parts of the neck, like this kind of thing. So that's a really good example of the kind of music that I like to do, but also the kind of music I like to teach.
It's a beautiful song, Dan. Thank you for playing that for us and demonstrating how you'd use that to teach. And I also want to thank you overall for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about your guitar teaching. It's been great to learn about what you do.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure talking with you about it.
It's been a pleasure for us as well, and we look forward to seeing you on Find a Guitar Teacher.
Thanks, James.
Thank you. Take care, Dan. Bye-bye.